belle France. Her stunning beauty, fiery individualism, and searching intellect have for centuries been a source of adoration and fascination to the rest of the world. This is a country where life is a pleasure, love and art a way of life. A stylish, self-assured people who view other nations with warm curiosity and also a certain sympathy for that inevitable flaw: they're not French. The wild western peninsula of Brittany is the most ancient region of France. Man has lived here for more than 60 centuries. Neolithic and Dark Age peoples have left their mysterious legacy on the landscape. At Carnac, on the southwest coast, nearly 3,000 standing stones have been arranged in intriguing lines and patterns. The alignments are a puzzle for modern science, a powerful catalyst for the human imagination, and an awesome link to a far distant past. The sea is still a major source of income, and fishing the principal activity along the 1,000 miles of Breton coastline. Boats operating from Breton ports land some of the most valuable catches in France. Yet, the region retains its simple charm and ancient culture. Many Breton traditions can be traced directly to the Celts, who came across the Channel during the 5th century from England and Wales. In the northeast are the regions of Burgundy, Franche-Comté, Champagne-Ardenne, Lorraine-Vosges, and Alsace. The regions of Alsace and Lorraine have changed hands between France and Germany several times. They were finally restored to France as recently as 1919. The folklore, architecture, food and drink of the area still retain a strong German influence. To the west of Alsace and Lorraine is a region whose name has become synonymous with the unique, sparkling wine it produces. Champagne was discovered by an enterprising 17th century Benedictine monk, Dom Pérignon. He was the abbey cellarmaster in the pretty hilltop village of Auvilliers. He is said to have announced his great discovery with the words, "Come quickly, I'm drinking stars." Burgundy, another of the many great wine regions in France, is an enchanting patchwork of unhurried farmland, colorful tiled roofs, and typical French country life. A network of canals, originally built for freight transport, is one of the most relaxing ways to enjoy a journey into the heartland of France. The northwest of France comprises the regions of Western Loire, Poitou-Charentes, and the Loire Valley. As the names suggest, the area is dominated by one of the greatest rivers in France. The peaceful Loire Valley is a sanctuary for wildlife and the heart of literary France. Many of the country's most renowned writers, including François Rabelais and Honoré de Balzac, were born or brought up here. It is also chateau country. As Balzac wrote, each step in this land of enchantment allows a fresh discovery of a picture framed by a river or a tranquil pool. During the 16th century reign of François I, a series of military campaigns in Italy inspired the absorption of Italian ideas and a great artistic renaissance in France. The king's life work was the great chateau at Chambord. Some historians believe the design was masterminded by the Italian genius Leonardo da Vinci, a close friend of the king. After François' death, the court moved to Chenonceau. The new king, Henri II, was obsessed with his mistress, Diane de Poitiers. He presented Chenonceau to her as a gift, much to the annoyance of his wife, Catherine de' Medici. When Henri died, the queen wasted no time in evicting Diane. Catherine continued the work her rival had begun. She extended the gardens and used them for lavish court extravaganzas. The interior also benefited from her efforts. The furnishings are still among the most impressive of all the chateaux. Like Chenonceau, Azay-le-Rideau on the river Indre was designed by a woman, Philippa Lesbailly. It was built purely for aesthetic pleasure without thought for military defense. The result was sublime harmony. Central France is dominated by a huge plateau, the Massif Central. The area encompasses the regions of Auvergne and the Rhône Valley, with its principal city, Lyon, the region of Limousin and the departments of Lot and Dordogne. The river Dordogne, one of the longest in France, is the lifeline of an eerie, ancient land home to prehistoric Cro-Magnon man 40,000 years ago. Its waters meander past a medieval world where defense was the main priority. Feudal fortresses tower on giant pinnacles of rock, remnants from a more violent age. La Roque-Gajac chooses the river as its defense, the stone houses hiding in the shelter of the cliff face.
Zali, allez, là, allez, mon cher, allez, allez petit, allez, là, allez.
The Dordogne region, also known as Périgord, is famous to the French for one of the country's most prized gastronomic delights, the truffle, a mushroom-like fungus is very rare, very expensive, and grows only near a particular type of oak tree.
Allez, petit. Allez. Allez. Allez.
Pigs love truffles. In fact, truffles are their favorite food. That's why Monsieur Chaume enlists the help of Rosalie's sensitive, if noisy, snout. The bad news for Rosalie is that she doesn't get to eat any of the truffles.
Allez. Allez, cherche. Voilà. Tout beau truc.
Truffle soup is a speciality at one of the finest restaurants in France. Paul Bocuse, considered by many to be the country's top chef, created the dish at the Élysée Palace in 1975, when he became the first chef ever to be decorated with the Legion of Honor by the French president. His restaurant at Collonges au Mont d'Or, just outside Lyon, is called simply Paul Bocuse.
J'annonce 2 soupes de moule et 2 sols. Non, c'est pas 2 soupes de moule, c'est 2 légers. Oui, 2 légers, monsieur. Ça c'est bon alors. 2 légers, 2 sols Méditerranée. Oui.
He was born to a family of chefs who have run a restaurant in the same village since the 17th century. Paul could cook by the time he was 8. He still believes in the personal touch and enjoys welcoming his guests at the door. The secret of his success is a true understanding of the pleasures of taste and smell. Paul Bocuse is at the pinnacle of a French talent for cuisine found in cities, towns and villages throughout the country. In the southwest are the regions of Languedoc-Roussillon, Midi-Pyrénées and Aquitaine, with its famous wine region, Bordeaux. Medieval Saint-Émilion is perhaps the most charming of the wine towns, its sleepy houses nestling in lush vineyards. Wine was first produced here in Roman times, and it is now one of the most prestigious labels in the world. Quality is the key to the town's success. Bordeaux wines are traditionally classified as chateaux to denote the wine-producing area. This does not necessarily mean there is a chateau on the estate, but in many cases, as with Du Cru Beaucaillou, there is a beautiful country house. The south of Aquitaine and most of the Midi is dominated by the magnificent Pyrenees, the natural border between France and Spain. The dramatic peaks carve their giant stepping stones from the Atlantic to the Mediterranean. The Western Pyrenees is the land of the Basques, a fiercely independent people with their own language, traditions, and culture. They are believed to be one of the most ancient peoples in Europe. The neat, whitewashed homesteads in the mountain village of Asquin are typical of Basque architecture. The Basque coast is among the most scenic in France. Saint-Jean-de-Luz, a modern-day fishing port, is one of the more picturesque coastal towns. It was largely built on the proceeds of piracy. A short distance inland is Bayonne, the economic capital of the region and bastion of Basque traditions. During the annual festival in August, the city is transformed into an ecstasy of excitement, and the natural Basque joie de vivre bursts to the fore. Young Basques are given an opportunity to prove their courage during the Course des Vaches, one of the highlights of the festival. The idea is to encourage the animals to go into one of the bars in the town square. Although the horns are capped, it is important to stay alert. There are inevitably a few bruises and some broken bones, but the injuries are not usually serious. The southeast is in many ways the playground of France. It includes the famous Côte d'Azur, the rich landscape of Provence, and the mighty French Alps, stretching up to Dauphiné, Alpes, and Savoy. The French summer playground is the Côte d'Azur. The sunny climate and sapphire waters are a magnet not solely for the chic and wealthy. Half the population of northern France spend their vacation here. The most famous resort in this hedonistic holiday land is Saint-Tropez. A pretty fishing village popular with artists of the late 19th century, it still retains much of its original Provençal charm. To the west of the Côte d'Azur is a region whose very name conjures images to delight the senses. Provence, where the rich earth and burnished sunshine work in harmony to produce a dazzling harvest. At the market in Aix, the Provençal capital, the abundance and variety of nature's riches are typical of the region.
Merci.
In Provence, even the air smells deliciously sweet, for this is the center of the French perfume industry. The gentle climate and cradle of protective mountains make the region ideal for flower production almost all year round. The perfume trade originated here 400 years ago. A group of Italian glove makers began using floral scents to perfume their soft leather gloves. Demand grew in the 18th and 19th centuries and led to the creation of those heady, sensuous fragrances that have become an essential part of French mystique. The landscape of Provence is vast and varied. The gentle beauty of lush woodland and rolling plateau dotted with azure lakes. The tranquility of sleepy hilltop villages basking in the hot sun. The drama of giant river gorges carving their way through craggy limestone rock. The Grand Canyon of the Verdon is one of the most awesome gorges in Europe. The giant chasm runs for 12 miles, at some points plunging more than 2,000 feet into the waters of the Verdon River. At the head of the gorge is Castellane, a typical Provençal village with its ancient narrow streets and brightly colored houses framed by the deep blue, of the Provençal sky. An important ritual in most Provençal towns and villages is the daily game of boule, or pétanque, a form of bowls. In a region that is famous for its relaxed and philosophical approach to life, arguments over boules and who may or may not be stretching the rules are often the main source of daily tension. The game is also a focal point for the village and a chance for a good chat. Marseille is the largest city in Provence and the oldest in France. It was 2,600 years ago, not long after the Celts settled in Brittany, that the Greeks sailed into this Mediterranean port. It soon became a gateway to North Africa and has since absorbed the traditions of countless settlers and invaders to produce a rich mix of races. The city is still a major seaport, but it has acquired a slightly tarnished reputation because of the drug traffickers and black marketeers who also use its natural harbor. Despite its bad press, Marseille is a fascinating and exciting city. Its strong personality only adds to its allure. The daily fish market at the old port is one of the best places to enjoy the city's colorful character. The lovely town of Arles to the south is considered by many to be the soul of Provence. The quiet back streets seem to belong to another age. It's easy to imagine Vincent van Gogh wandering through the maze of alleyways during his tormented years here. The town rose to prominence during the 1st century BC when Julius Caesar decided to punish Marseille for siding with one of his rivals and gave Rome's trade to Arles. The town was eventually made the capital of Roman Gaul. The huge amphitheater, once the haunt of gladiators, is now a stage for bullfighters and holds 20,000 spectators. Arles is the gateway to the Camargue, a wild stretch of wind-swept marshland that has somehow escaped the marks of history and the legacy of man. The Camargue is one of the greatest bird migration sites in Europe. The symbol of the region is the flamingo. The graceful birds are fascinating to watch as they use their webbed feet and down-curved beak to extract invertebrates from the mud. This wild region is a rare glimpse into prehistoric Europe. Some say the famous Camargue horses are descendants of the ponies that roamed through ancient Gaul. They share their territory with Camargue cowboys known as gardiens. Theirs is the spirit of willful freedom, grace, and power. A spirit that cannot be harnessed or tamed. The spirit of France. A country like no other, sensuous yet intellectual, proud yet irresistible. A gifted, passionate people who have added immeasurably to the treasures of mankind. A determined nation that has forged its own destiny on its own terms. France is, above all, in love with life, and the rest of the world is in love with France.